Another round of applause for the magnificent Agnès Varda. I would like to start by just placing this film within your larger body of work. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but you were at the time living in Los Angeles with your husband Jacques Demy. Is this correct?
And our daughter Rosalie, and a dog.
What was the dog's name? I didn't know about the dog.
Little Princess was the dog of Rosalie.
I thought, I've only seen cats in your films, never dogs.
But I love cats. She loved the dog.
And so, was it only until you were living in the United States that you became aware of the Black Panther Party, or did you become aware of them while in Paris?
I'm sure we had heard about it, not that much, but you know, Tom Luddy, who maybe is known now, very known, at the time he had been working at the Pacific Film Archives, and we were friends. And he told me, I was in Los Angeles, he told me, you should come to Oakland because a lot of things are happening here because of this demonstration and Sunday. So every Saturday I will fly from Los Angeles to Oakland. And with his help, and there was also a French journalist who had to do a little report for Elle, Pascal Thomas, who became a famous director. And so he told me, you shouldn't miss that. So I didn't miss it. And I had a 16 millimeter camera. I shot a lot of it alone. And then I was helped by 2 or 3 people who had been around. I should write, maybe Paul Aratov, and, well, I don't remember all the names right now. And every Sunday, for 3 weeks, I think it was enough, for 4 weeks, I filmed what I could catch. And I needed to get the speeches because I wanted to have what they did clearly. I wanted to understand their program. And what was so important for me, for what I understood, is what they call the mind and body theory, is that so far before, all the theory about black people had been written by white men. And for what I understood, for the first time in their history, they were doing the philosophic writing, the program writing, and doing the draft. So they thought they were, for the first time, really involved in their own history. I was impressed by it because at the time, I remember thinking about women, that all the big theory about women have been written by men, Marx, Engels, Babel, all these people. And also for the first time in the 60s, women started to write about what the philosophy and the history and the rights of women were. So I was impressed by that equivalence.
The equivalence, yes.
Equivalent. But I was very interested then because the same way I'd said when I was in Cuba, we will speak about it later, but I said, I've been to Russia, Russia and communism, and I thought that communism and cha-cha-cha was better in Cuba. And the black pill is like politics and music. It goes really together. And I love the idea that when they have something to say, they sing it. So I filmed what I could get, and I did the editing, and that's it. This is a documentary. But what I'm saying, it's a very precisely in 68, because the history of Black Panthers has changed so much. 2 years later, they were almost gone. 1 or 2 little groups here and there. Even in Philadelphia recently, I met, I don't know, a group of 5 people, 10 people. So it was so important at the time. I really thought it would change the history of black people. Everybody thought that, and it didn't happen. So that documentary became a, comment dire, un témoignage?
Bore witness. The documentary bore witness.
The documentary bore witness, according to Lucius.
C'est pas, on dit pas testimony? No.
Testimony, yes, also quite accurate.
Of that precise time of Black Panthers. Well, do you have questions?
The question is, did you show the documentary in France?
Oh, that's a good question, because it was
In
supposedly ordered by a very big show, was called 5 colonnes à la une. It was a kind of 60-minute thing, very serious documentary. And Pierre Lazareff had asked me that to put it in. And when I brought the film and sent it to them, it had been up past the Mai 68. May 68 was very strong in France, as you know. And somebody said in the channel, board. I said, it will maybe waken up the anger of the students. We should not show it. So they didn't show it.
Was it showed in the States in '68?
No.
Dommage.
Yes, the bash. Even, Murmure, a film I made about the mural in Los Angeles. I remember a woman flying from New York because they had heard that ABC would like to screen the film, so she come to see Murmure. At one point, they refused it. And why? It's because some of you have seen Murmure, but there was a painting on which there was a man on a shelter, in a shell, ladder. A man on a ladder with his brush like this. So I asked a real man to jump on a ladder, keep the brush like this, wait 10 seconds, then turn to me and speak. So the people of ABC said that the documentaries belong to the news department. And so since I asked him to go on the ladder, this is mise en scène. So they can't show it because we cheat the audience. So no luck with my documentaries in the States.
I think this is the only documentary of yours in which you don't hear your voice at all. Who's the woman who narrates the film?
It's my friend Denise Warren, who was a philosophic teacher, but I thought my voice is so bad with my accent, it's better to ask her. It's my word. In French, it's my word and my voice.
I see. Do we have a few more questions from the audience before we go to the next? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Again, what we spoke about, what is documentary and fiction. I was really at the service of the subject. I was there to be witness that I had seen, heard, ask them to express themselves and get the feeling of all these children dancing and so. So I had the feeling I was really discreet as much as possible because it was an important subject. And this is true, it belongs to their history. And it's good that each time they do a film about history of black people, they come to ask us a piece of this because it's something other people have filmed, but that specific thing was complete. Thank you. As you read, it says, to be continued. I think we lost some of our hopes, some of our illusion. But at that time, we really thought it would change more than it has.
Well, can you tell us about where you placed this film in terms of your own involvement in the feminist movement in France?
I don't remember exactly the year, but every year there is something. The year of the children, the year of... And they decided one time it would be the year of the women. So a French channel, asked 7 women to make films about what it is to be a woman, different point of view. And I remember I went to the boss of that channel and said, aren't you ashamed to ask her to speak about such a big subject in 7 minutes? He said, you are always complaining. How long do you want? I say 8 minutes. So it's an 8-minute film. Obviously, I took a very small one of the aspects of being a woman. And it came out really like what it is. What I was impressed is I thought, since they forbid the advertising, because you've seen incredible advertising, they were using women's bodies. And there is a law now in France, they cannot do it that much. They do it differently in the advertising of products, but they can no longer do it that rude and grossier, gross.
Gross.
But still, it's not going that good, let's say.
Who are these amazing women we see in Women Reply?
People, my friend, people I met, people I know. I want to have that beautiful mannequin, but people, my neighbors, a worker, a teacher, a pregnant woman. She was expecting twins and a good shape. And there was another story. They screened it in that show in which they wanted the woman to express. And the television received complaints of auditeurs, people, audience, TV audience, saying, how do you dare showing a naked woman at the time when children can see TV. Like, you should show that at the time of the porno at 2 a.m. or something. So we always have people not happy. Always.
Always. This will never change. Revolutionary hopes will come and go, but people getting upset is a
Are there some
constant.
question about
Yes.
what women say? Yes?
Yes. The question is what got censored? Your
Well,
writing says...
The sex. I wanted to show an open sex. And I remember one of the first feminist festival was in Toronto in 1970. And there was a film called Near the Big Chakra. Have somebody seen that film?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, yes. And it was a film that a woman made showing, open sex of women, showing how much they could be different. That was a shock, And that was Near the Big Chakra. I never saw that film later. I don't know if it disappeared. But so I thought I would show one sex, and the man at the television, the boss, said, "Don't show sex." So it was forbidden.
The question is, why do you think some of the progress or some of the hopes that we see in the first two films, why do you think it has been
You see
lost?
the situation. This is like in 70 or 90 or 80, I don't know. We are
This
40
film is
years.
75.
75, so 40 years later. I cannot say the situation is totally good in terms of advertising, in terms of rights, in terms of point of view. When she said the body of a woman is not just the erotic part of the body, it's a total body, and that thing is not yet accepted in a way. Well, we cannot go into that because it's for me, very serious subject and cannot be just like, but that was a fact. That's why I call it fact, because it's my statement at the time. It's still mine.
And I mean,
On that level, I haven't changed.
and many of the themes in this 8-minute film you would develop in One Sings, the Other Doesn't, 2 years later.
Well, that's a different thing again. But yes, the cause of women have been always important for me, but I never became the feminist filmmaker or the specialist of feminism in film. I rather fight for certain cinema and englobant, taking together all the themes that, the left, the feminism and love and all the subjects that are important for me.
Is Ulysse next? Okay.
Well, yes.
We'll be back in 22 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Agnès, I've often wondered, your voiceover narrations are always so beautiful and so eloquent. You mix personal history and world history and mythology. And I've often wondered what your process is like for writing that. Does it come to you very quickly? Does it require many revisions?
Well, the image was the question. And I was questioning the image and questioning myself, my own memory. We never was very good, so now it's worse. But at the time, even, it was not so good. And it took me, I would say, it was not personal. It took me to do an inquiry. I couldn't believe that that's so important, Dien Bien Phu thing. That was the first day of decolonization. It's a very important date in the history. And when I started to investigate, I didn't remember, it didn't fit together. I didn't remember that the emotion of Dien Bien Phu was on that day. On that day, I kept just the memory of Ulysse. Mm-hmm. So I was impressed that there are so many ways of seeing an image. And, well, I do the editing. In the editing room, I write a narration, but then I record it. Then I try it with the images. It doesn't work so much. I change the image. But then I change the image, I change the narration. So I write it again, record it again. So it's a process of editing and trying to not speak too much, but say things that, for me, make sense and also lead, I guess, the viewer to go in that direction or another one. I don't know if you notice how much an image, one image, can be powerful in questioning and dreaming and knowing and related to your own life, what you feel about a dead animal or a dead person. And all these circle of thoughts, I think they can be shared, but everybody looks at the photo and at the film with a personal feeling. So it's just a, on rebondit, you know, it's like proposing things to everybody. Everybody has its own way of seeing and thinking. So what I question, and we spoke about that the other day, is whatever you ask an image to tell you, you put in the image what you feel, but at the end, it just represents something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that we spoke about that. I mean, some artists say that the viewer is part of the process of making. So the viewer of the photo and the viewer of the film about the photo, everything is related to your own life. So that's why I try to explain, and that at the end, not explain, suggest, and at the end, the images just represent a goat, child, and a man. So I don't know if you have a question about that.
Yes, I think we have time for just one question before we move on to the final film. There's a gentleman way in the back. The question is, how did you find the music?
It was an excerpt of the music that Barbeau made for La Pointe Courte. And I thought it fits very well that film. Pierre Barbeau was, I asked him to do the music for La Pointe Courte. He was a dodecaphonist composer. At the time, he worked on the first computer was big, like half a room. And he programmed the theme, and the machine did the development. And I laugh because that was so daring at the time in a film to ask that kind of music. But then I use it again for this film. I think it goes well. It's peaceful and strange, like the images.
So, without further ado, Salut les Cubains, and we'll be back in half an hour. Thank you.
Do you feel dancing?
We're resting now because we're going to cha-cha-cha to conclude the Q&A.
But we chat, is that a word?
We chat-chat-chat.
We
That's what we do.
chat.
Yes, that's right. Have you returned to Cuba since making Salut les Cubains?
Yes.
And
I was totally disappointed,
yeah.
to tell the truth. Because the incredible hope they had and the real revolution they made of what it was before and what they decided to do, I remember touching me beautifully to tears. Like, they had the idea that everybody should learn to read and write. And at that time, when I went, school students of 14 and 16 years old, in their holiday time, they were sent in the country in the mountains. They were teaching the old people and teaching the people, the peasant. And you could see these children, explaining how to read and how to write. That idea that the culture should be everywhere and that everybody deserved, all these things relate to the same time lack of transportation, lack of food, but there was a beautiful project of a real revolution and a real socialism, sharing everything to everybody. And at the time it was very tough. But they were, for the people I met, were really strongly hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
Hopeful means they had hope.
Yes.
And obviously, I went back much later. I went back after Jacques Audenard in 91. So this is 30 years later. And there was again corruption and dollars and prostitution, and the spirit was gone. Many people were despair. Some have left. Others were fighting against everything was broken. I mean, I had a bad feeling, even though some people were still very courageous, and I remember architects teaching the people to build bricks, like in the old times, with mud and hay, what on appelle piser. When they were trying to find again new ways of substitution of what they couldn't get. But still, I felt bad, I must say. Voilà.
Well, it's very interesting, I think, for many of us who live in the States to see this film now, because we're in this historical moment of there finally being a thaw between relations between the two countries. I never thought I would see that in my lifetime. And it reminds me of something very, very poignant and moving that you said when I had the great fortune of interviewing you 10 years ago about this film when it was included in Cine Varda Photo. I have the quote here. You said, Salut les Cubains shows how history moves and changes. And I think, it's quite...
That's a sort of normal thing. Everybody knows that.
Well...
It's not a quote, it's just fact.
But you're undermining your own eloquence.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to say that I say something which is just banal, which is true. But I speak like sometimes like everybody says. We change, everything changes, history changes a lot. But this is true. I had comment on dit une prémonition?
A premonition?
Yeah. When I had the chance to take picture of Fidel Castro, I asked from the beginning, they say, I don't know, he's busy. Yes, I was. And at some point he said, he will call you if there is an opportunity. And somebody called me and he said, he's in sometime near the beach, he's having just a normal rest time, and you could go there. So I couldn't choose a place, and I noticed this border, these stones. And I asked him to sit. I think we showed the picture in it. No? And he had behind him, I put him, the two stones as stone wings. Could you say that? Because it looks like he has wings, but are stone. And I remember feeling when I took that picture, I say, he has a dream, he has an incredible utopia, and he won't fly because he has stone wings. I remember feeling that. And the photo touches me, makes me feel sad, because that's what happened. Mm-hmm. They couldn't get off the ground. Is that the word?
Yes, that's exactly it. All right, we have time for a few questions. Yes, the gentleman right there. The question is, how many rolls of film did you go through in making Salut les Cubains?
But I did rolls of film, you need. A photo. Well, I don't know, maybe 3,000 or I don't know, a lot. I didn't count them. But I had to cover, you understand, when I met Benny Morey, that incredible singer, I had to meet where he was. He sits in a restaurant, in the room of the restaurant. I knew I could not ask him, let's go with me between the trees or in front of an orchestra or something. So I had to do where it was. So here's a beautiful singer, coming and singing between the tables and whatever was there. So I had to grab what I could do. And the thing again, as I said, because I had to get him, and when he dances, and he sings, he has a kind of jumping way of dancing. So I had enough images for each scene. I had like 50 images, 50 negas, enough to make one movement. And so I had some sequences, the cutting the canne à sucre, the sugar cane.
Sugar cane?
Cutting, I was there. Then the people of ICAI, the people of the school, cinema school, beautiful cinema school. At that time, the cinema was very strong. They were putting most of the money in culture and cinema. And I remember the 13 chairs and all these films. And the student of the ICAI school would dance for me at the end. And they wouldn't. And I was once in a village, and that bizarre a truck came with the music going like this, what we call ordre de barbarie in France, I don't know what is that. And they came in the village, I was just there. All the people started to dance, it was so beautiful. I didn't expect that to happen. So I made photo and I put it in dance. So I tried to tell what was happening, but I took always, like I do, I say always that Chance is my first assistant. I wouldn't miss an opportunity to grab something and to get something. And these people in the village were really beautiful, the way they enjoyed the man with the da-da-da-da. Organo de manzanilla is the word in...
I think, is that hurdy-gurdy? I think that's how it was translated in the film.
No, I did read. I was speaking Spanish, not very well though, but enough Spanish to share with people. That's very important. We're in a country and you try to... So I could say enough words that they would trust that I was in good mood and trying to understand them. Sometimes I missed some of what they said. But I was trying to understand the origins of the music coming from, as I said in the film. Not just say, okay, Cuban music. It comes from different sources, is that the word?
Yes.
And I thought it was interesting to try to make it understandable. So I tried to make that clear that I was not enjoying, but trying to do a real documentary that would learn something about the country, the Ministre d'Agriculture, and the way they behave. And I loved, is it the film? I loved so much. There was a little white girl who had a black doll, and a black girl who had a white doll. I found that so lovely, and things like this that I noticed on the way. I tried to, and I met many people. They were very nice, very open at the time, I must say. And I was there with a wonderful man from the Belgium Cinematheque, Ledoux, and Jacques Ledoux, who was especially meeting the guy of the Cuban Cinematheque, not Carlos, wait, I don't, Hector. And because they had all the American films, because they only had American film for many years, and he had kept the prints. So everybody wanted then to get some of those beautiful American films, because there was no Cinematheque in America at the time. You know, they didn't care about their own films. It's recently that it started. So a lot of Cinematheque were coming. In case they have 3 prints of Hitchcock or 3 prints of Hawks, they would try to trade one with something. So Ledoux and Hector got along a lot, and I went to the country with a woman who, I'm sorry, died, a very good documentarist Cubain. Oh my God, right now I'm looking for her name. But
Is it Sarita Gomez?
Bravo. Sarita Gomez. And they gave me Sarita, say, she will come with you in the south. So we went to Santiago de Cuba and all that. She was with me all the time. And such a nice woman. She did good documentaries. And she died very young. And I miss her. When I went back, she was no longer there. And she's one of the last one with a little military uniform, which is so ugly, but that's what they were doing. And she's dancing with so much joy. So, and, well, a lot of people died. Saul Yelin, who was directing the ICAIC school that we see. And it's interesting, was he went to his house, and there was a beautiful painting of, Le peintre Cubain, who's now...
Wilfredo Lam?
Huh?
Wilfredo Lam?
Yes, merci. Wilfredo Lam. And there was a little baby lying on the couch. I said, it's nice to have the baby. And then recently that woman called me. She's a grown-up woman, almost a grandmother. And she said, can I have the picture of me under the lamb? So I met the son of Wilfredo Lam. They had a big show in Nantes, and in the Ciudad, I showed it. I understand some people want to come in the theaters, right?
You have a screening at 5 for Daguerreotype.
So I can stay here, maybe. I stay here, and then people enter. Why should I go up the step again?
Well, I think we should give you a final round of applause to thank you.